Hi, good afternoon. This is another webinar from Hype, and today we're going to be talking about some key foundations and on sustainable enterprise innovation programs. I'm Hype as Director of Strategic Consulting, and I'll be taking you through our content today. My role is really about people and process. How do we motivate and promote participation in innovation? And how do we do that across large, complex and enterprises, and often between enterprises as well? I spend my time primarily working with multinational organizations and SMEs, looking at how their cultures work, what their targets are for innovation, and how they can encourage their employees to get involved and participate, supporting both innovating the business as well as the product and the service. The topics for today include the following three things. We'll initially touch on what enterprise innovation is, just so you understand a little bit about Hype, the context within which we're going to be talking today, what sort of organizations we work with, and what our perspective is. Then we'll touch on briefly the context for sustainability in terms of enterprise innovation. It's important to think about what we really mean when we talk about a sustainable enterprise innovation program. I'll be defining some terms for you which will be helpful as we move into the bulk of the conversation today, which is on foundations for a sustainable enterprise program. Well, we'll be taking you through four core themes that we see time and again make a big difference in terms of promoting increasing levels of engagement, increasing levels of portfolio value, and of course increasing levels of innovation. So let's look at a little bit about Hype. For those of you who aren't aware, we're an innovation and idea management software company. We're based in Bonn in Germany and also in Boston in the United States. We have around 90 employees and a combination of software people as well as services people. We have around 180 active installations worldwide, and we have a very flexible software platform to support a wide range of different innovation needs, irrespective of the shape of your organization, the company structure, and the languages that you speak. So, enterprise innovation. Typically that includes a number of different things. The enterprise, of course, means we need some software, so let's take that as a given. We also need to think about the process that we want people to follow. What types of steps we're expecting people to make in terms of participating in innovation, sharing ideas, reviewing ideas, developing those ideas into concepts perhaps. And of course, putting some software and a process in place doesn't necessarily mean that people will join in and participate, so we also support you from a professional services standpoint in terms of the consulting and services you need to help promote engagement and help change the organization, establish those great behaviors you want to see. We work with a very wide range of different organizations. Some focus on back-end innovation, so taking ideas through to implementation. Some focus on front-end innovation, so generating new ideas for business problems or growth opportunities. Others do what we consider to be end-to-end innovation, where they go all the way from strategic areas of focus all the way through to implementation. And of course, we have some of those clients also using our software and services focused on third parties, so customers, suppliers, supply chain, academia, bringing ideas in from outside of the organization, but also testing ideas and concepts with strategic partners. So a very wide range of different types of application across our customer portfolio. So this is my world, sustainable enterprise innovation programs, and I think it's just worth dwelling on this four-word phrase just for a moment. The first point around sustainability, and that's going to be a key focus for today, is simply because one-off innovations aren't enough. If we're to encourage the enterprise to get involved in innovation, we need to be continually developing greater and greater levels of innovation, of engagement, of idea value, and that of course requires some thought and some planning. The enterprise accepts the fact that we really want to get a grander group of people involved in innovation. That means not just the core R&D professionals, it means sales, it means marketing, it means our entire organization. If you're in a services organization, perhaps have never really thought about systemized innovation, maybe this feels more natural to you to have everybody contributing. Of course, enterprise scale requires software, and that's where the Hype application comes in. But putting software in place to support a large complex organization or multiple organizations coming together requires some understanding of how people behave online at scale. And that's where me and my team come in to help us with the process and also with the people and how those two interact. And that's the perspective we'll be coming at mostly from today. So bear in mind that we come from a position of enterprise innovation using software, but we're not going to be talking about software at all today. We're going to be focused on how do we establish good behaviors and how do we make these programs sustainable. So some fundamental assumptions before we get going. The first one is we want to get people involved. We accept that they have a role in innovation. We also accept that collective expertise is a powerful asset. So the ideas of individuals are not necessarily the ideas we will go ahead and implement. What we want is diversity of opinion, different personality types being brought to bear, challenging, discussing, critiquing the ideas of others. We accept, of course, that we have a huge amount of latent expertise in our organization. We simply want to be able to harness it. And when we're busy, we're traveling to different locations, or we're doing different very high operational roles, it's hard to tap into that. We want to make better use of our people and our knowledge. In terms of using that resource, we can, of course, apply that to develop greater levels of innovation. So our reaction to those fundamental assumptions are, let's give people the ability to share ideas and insights. Let's encourage them to collaborate, and let's focus on that as a key behavior that we want to see, people building and improving and critiquing the ideas of others. Let's tap into those hidden knowledge pools that we know exist, and then let's keep everything that we generate, ensuring that we can call upon that portfolio of ideas, concepts, insights, trends, whatever it is that we capture in the future, irrespective of when it was generated. We also accept that not every idea that we generate right now is going to be applicable for our business at this time. We may not be able to resource it, we may not have the budget, but in the future we may want to call back on that. So retaining everything is a good thing to do. And this is where our hype innovation workflow comes in. So we focus in first in thinking about strategic innovation areas. So what are the key hunting grounds and focus points for our innovation energy? As many organizations do, we run idea campaigns. So that's focused, sponsor-led questions encouraging a subsection of our organization or organizations on a particular challenge or need. We, of course, generate some content in response to that. That could be ideas, it could be insights, it could be feedback, it could be solutions. And, of course, then we make some choices on which suggestions and ideas are the best. And maybe that's the point where we can go ahead and implement. Or if we need to make a bigger case, we may develop business concepts, developing business cases, and eventually into innovation projects. And you can see that separation is what we'd normally term the gap between the front end and the back end of innovation. So let's move on to the context for sustainability. Why do we care about sustainability in an innovation world, and what does that mean anyway? Well, sustainable enterprise innovation within our corporate world typically means three things. The first one is we can see that over time engagement is going up. If it's going down consistently over time, then there's something wrong. There's something we need to adapt to. But the reverse is also true. If we encourage more and more people to get involved in innovation over time, then we're heading in a good direction. But that's not the complete picture. We need to make sure that that engagement is valuable. It's focused on things that we want to see get done. And that should result into a better and more robust innovation portfolio. Now that might be more radical ideas, it might be more incremental ideas, but the value of those ideas should be going up over time. We should be seeing greater levels of innovation, greater levels of creativity. Of course, eventually that's, we hope, going to result in greater levels of business value, be that in savings or in revenue growth or in efficiencies, whatever it is that you measure value. If you're in healthcare, maybe you talk about improved patient experience, value in your world. What we care about is having all of these three measures increasing over time. Engagement going up, innovation going up, and value going up. And we can't be complacent, but if each of those three are going up consistently over time, we know we're in a relatively safe place. Of course, there are some threats to sustainability. We may find that the organization lacks belief in the program. They don't necessarily want to get involved in innovation or don't feel it's a good use of their time. We may find that it takes us too long to deliver value to the business. So people who previously were engaged, disengage because they don't see the purpose and the point of being involved. And of course, there may be a lack of success and feedback, and eventually that will water down participation. No one wants to participate in a program that's struggling. And so if we don't see success stories, if we don't receive feedback, on our innovation projects and activities, then eventually people will disengage and go back to their more operational roles. So we need to bear this in mind so that we can mitigate it as far as possible. And what that might look like in practice is one of these two pictures, where perhaps in the light blue world we have a big peak in participation to start off with, there's some interest, there's some excitement, but maybe we're overwhelmed, we can't follow up on the content that we've received, or perhaps we haven't shifted the program to keep up with changing expectations from the organization. Perhaps the company's ready to do more and we're still focused on very moderate innovation activities, and so we lose them over time. In the dark blue world, perhaps we never get the focus just quite right to stimulate people's imagination. Again, perhaps there's a fundamental lack of belief in the program. Of course, we want to avoid both of these things. What we want is a steady increase in participation over time, and that's where these four fundamental foundations are going to come in. So let's look at each of those in turn. And I want to start off with communications. Communications has an absolutely crucial role, and there's 4 different levels of communications thinking we need to consider in terms of developing a sustainable program. I'm going to break those down for you, and we're going to discuss each in turn. I also like to think about growing our innovation community. You might be a chief innovation officer, you might be an innovation manager, but increasing the scope of people that can participate and join into innovation is always a good thing. There's a relatively small group of people that are enthusiasts that will spare a little time away from the day job to help you out. And what we want to think about is how do we find those people, how do we harness them? Breadth of focus across our innovation programs are also important. If we just do one type of innovation or one type of product line, eventually we will dry the well up and people will not necessarily be caring anymore about that particular product line or that particular area of service. So we need to look at a range of different innovation activities over time so that different people can get involved. That might mean breadth in terms of the level of innovation, be it incremental, strategic, or radical. It also may well be focused on things beyond what we may consider to be traditional product and service innovation, so cost savings or risk reduction. We can use similar tools that we use in the innovation world to help with perhaps things that we may not necessarily consider to be traditional innovation, and we'll discuss those through. And finally, we need to use the data that we capture. One of the good elements of using systems like software to capture participation and the value of our innovation funnel is we can review it, we can have governance over that, and we can make adjustments to our process to maximize the performance. So whatever we create in terms of an innovation process, we need to bear in mind it needs to be under continuous review and be developed as our culture and our structures change, as our markets change. Before we go into each of the foundations, I want to deal with a prerequisite. This is some thinking that we use quite regularly in HYPE in terms of thinking about organizational shape. When I say organizational shape, I mean which people fit into which categories, and creating a shape that we can use in order to steer our tactics and our communication strategies. We're going to find that people fit into one of 5 categories very cleanly. The first is the enthusiast. These are people that love the process. They're perhaps the early adopters in many people's terminology. They will get involved no matter what the challenge is, no matter what the task at hand is. They just love getting involved in innovation. And we often see a number of these people coming to the fore very quickly when we start establishing enterprise programs. Then we have another second category called interested. These are people that are those that we would consider to be where we want most people to live. We want most people to fit into this category. So when they see something relevant to them, they're happy to join in. If they see the relevance, great. They're happy to share, to collaborate, and to participate. Then we have those that are cautious. These are people that perhaps are aware of the program. They've seen the marketing messages. Maybe they're even logging in. Maybe they're even joining up to brainstorming sessions. But they're not yet actually participating actively. So they're curious. They're waiting to see if this is something they should take seriously or to qualify out of. They're looking to see whether this will deliver value and whether they can foster belief in that process. And it may take us a while to turn some of these people around, but they exist in almost every organization. Then we have those that are unaware. Perhaps they're new joiners, or perhaps the result of an acquisition. They haven't yet absorbed the marketing messages. Maybe they've been sent them, maybe they walk past the poster, but they haven't yet got to the position of actually investing any time or energy into the program. Maybe they are on the border of being cautious, but not quite there. And essentially, that's where we want to put our marketing energies. And then we have the skeptics, or those that are negative. And they're usually created due to historical innovation failings. So if you had a suggestion, dusty old suggestion box that perhaps didn't deliver any value, where people put their ideas and no one got any feedback, you may find a portion of those people have turned into skeptics. They're people that no longer believe that the organization really wants to hear from them and hear about their ideas. And of course, they're much harder to turn around when we establish new enterprise programs. And again, they exist in almost every organization. Now, the amount of people that we have in each of these categories enables us to create an organizational shape, a little bit like a population chart, and we can make a judgment on where our energy should go based upon this shape. So we know if the biggest category is blue, where we have lots of people yet unaware of the program, essentially our challenge is one of marketing, and proving and demonstrating success and value as quickly as we can to make sure we push them up into those green categories. Perhaps if our dominant category is red, we may need to step away from the innovation topic completely and use the same tools and techniques to do things like process improvement and cost savings, essentially tactical initiatives that will build belief and confidence in a new way of working before we start moving them towards a more creative and innovative position. Now, we're going to come back to this in more detail as we progress through each of the different foundations. This is important foundations for everyone to be aware of. So let's look at the communications foundation. We want to balance the type and quality of communication as that organizational shape changes. So, of course, we have a range of different things we need to care about. We want to keep people in the loop. We want to advertise success. We want to build belief and confidence in the approach, and maybe even advertise for different innovation challenges. There's a whole range of things that we may well want to care about when it comes to communications. But there are some four basics that we need to think about. The first one is marketing. Essentially attacking those people in the blue category, making them aware of the program, why and how they should join in. We also need to make sure that people believe in the process once they have joined in. So giving people feedback on the ideas that they've submitted and making sure they know that their ideas have been reviewed and what the next steps will be will help foster belief and confidence in that process. And that may well turn someone who's light green into dark green, or if someone in the yellow category sees it happening to others, may well turn them into the light green category, and they're interested people. Giving feedback is crucial to the sustainability of the program. Nothing stops an enterprise innovation program faster than not giving feedback to the participants. They simply disengage. At the end of each of our sort of innovation programs or our campaigns or our brainstorming sessions, we should also provide feedback not just to those people that participated, but to all of those that were invited. So if you invited 500 people or 1,000 people to an idea campaign, and maybe 30% of them participated, there's a 70% that still need to hear what happened. It could be the reason they didn't join in is because the topic didn't quite engage them. Perhaps the topic was not something that they felt they could contribute to. But we're still interested in making sure they have belief and confidence in the process. So giving them feedback on what the next steps will be to the entire invited audience is also crucial. This will help ensure that if they were wavering, next time they do see a topic that's of interest to them, they join in. And finally, we have the program level. And this is just as relevant to senior stakeholders as it is to the organization. On a quarterly basis, we tend to look at what the program has achieved. We look back perhaps over previous years and see where the innovation progress is. So we take 50% of our energy and put that into advertising what's happened in the past and what the progress is. Often in our organizations, innovation takes a long time. It may take many years in certain industries. But you may have participated in an idea campaign maybe 2 or 3 years ago and have not heard what the next steps was beyond some initial feedback. This is our opportunity on a quarterly basis to say, this idea is now made it into proof of concept, we're going to put it into production. Again, helps building confidence and belief in that process. Now the other 50% of our energy goes into looking forwards. So what are we going to do moving forwards in terms of innovation and getting people included? We're going to reach out to new third parties, going to reach out to academia. We're going to run a particular idea campaign or brainstorming session on a highly engaging topic. Letting people know what's coming just seeds the ground and lets them know that this is an ongoing process. Again, very helpful in terms of team people up to participate for the future. So those are the 4 key areas of focus that most organizations care about, and we need to adhere to them all. However, of course, the amount of energy we put into each of them will change over time. We need to vary our tactics, of course, as well, depending on the shape of our organization. So in an organization that's new to this, with lots of people unaware, we're going to be focusing on marketing the activity typically. An organization where we have lots of skeptics, perhaps there's a history of innovation failure, we're going to be perhaps not marketing it in the widest sense, but instead what we're going to be doing is focusing on small tactical innovation activities or incremental innovation activities to show the value of a process before we start to stretch them into a position of supporting more innovative and creative places. And maybe there's something where we have an organization that's at least partially mature in terms of its enterprise and innovation energy. It's really about harnessing the enthusiasm. This is where feedback and keeping people in the loop is so important. We want to keep as many people as we can into those top green categories. And typically what we do is we make a judgment on how many people may roughly sit in each of those categories on day one and measure that on an annual or 6-monthly basis, and then use the dominant categories to dictate our communication strategy and our campaign tactics. We'll come back to campaign tactics a little bit later when we talk about breadth and focus. Of course, even if your organization starts in a particular place, there's a journey they're expecting to go on. So as you transition from different organizational shape to different organizational shape, the types of communications energy you have are of course going to change. So not only do we need to bear in mind where we're starting from, we also need to look at what the journey is going to be. So as you'll see, marketing and awareness typically drops off over time, demonstrating value, rigor of process, feedback typically increases over time as we have more and more people pushed into that top category. So let's move on to growing our innovation communities. It's fair to say anyone that's been involved in enterprise innovation will be able to tell you 20 to 30 people, perhaps even more, that are not on the innovation payroll but seem to join in on a very regular basis. These are our innovation enthusiasts. Those are people that are great at spreading the message. They may well have influence over other colleagues, and they can virally spread what we want to see in terms of changes in behaviors across the organization. They can spread the right attitude and the right way of working. These people exist in all organizations to greater or lesser numbers, but the longer we perform our program for, the typically more will emerge. And they're a great use of energy. Put time into these people and they will become your advocates. They will help you scale your program far larger than you ever imagined. So if you're one innovation manager really struggling to understand what's happening in Division A and the depths of the operations there, develop an advocate community. Grow this group of people. They're superbly helpful. They're very easy to find as well. They're the highly engaged group. Those are the people at the top of this little pyramid here. They participate in almost every campaign. They may not necessarily be heavy idea submitters. They may be heavy idea commenters. But they're worth approaching and asking if they'd like to be an advocate. We can train these people, we can tell them what it means to be an innovation advocate, and we can support them over time. So they become our eyes and ears deep into the organization. They can make connections for us. They can tell us what's going on. They can tell us where the opportunities for innovation maybe exist. They can also help seed our idea campaigns or set up our brainstorming sessions with initial content. Remember, they love the process. They love being involved in innovation. It's helpful that they're not on the payroll because they have a deeper connection into the business, because they don't have innovation in the job title. So they can tell you how things really are and give you some great insights in terms of where we should be putting our energies and how to get these different parts of the organization involved. Of course, these individuals, they help make it much more sticky. They have influence beyond their own spheres, and hopefully what we see is this rippling out effect. So we're trying to proactively find different people in different parts of the business, in different sectors, so irrespective of their hierarchy, we're looking for people that can influence others. We're cultivating, identifying, training these people, and using them to help spread the word of innovation within the organization is a very, very good use of energy and time. Let's move on to our third foundation, breadth of focus. Now, every organization we talk to tends to define innovation a little bit differently. But the reality is we tend to be thinking about innovation as a mechanism or as a process to get us to the things that CEOs typically care about, which is growth and efficiency. More money, less cost. These are the things that certainly in the private sector we care about. In the public sector, maybe it's better service at lower cost. But again, this is still things that is very, very simple terminology for the C-level executives within our organization. It's worth bearing in mind that innovation techniques are often applied to product and service innovation because that's where we see the biggest revenue opportunity for them. But in many cases, things like tools like brainstorming or creativity training or indeed idea campaigns, the methodology is just as applicable to a whole range of different areas of our business. And often our definitions of innovation paint us into a corner. We tend to get very locked in to the area of product, for example. And there's no real good reason for that, because if we focus on those areas where the C-suite really care, it's revenue, profits, and there's a whole range of different activities that we can use our skills to do in order to improve our returns to the business. So whether we think about incremental innovation, when we think about radical, disruptive, or strategic innovation, the reality is we can also think about some other areas. So let's think about what they may well be. Where else could we help the company? How else can we keep people engaged? And what other activities can we apply our tools and our techniques to that can help innovate the business and deliver business value? Now, we certainly see a whole range of different tactics at different customers, but these are the most common ones, looking to save money. Deutsche Post DHL saved something like 235 million euros in just 1 year in 2011, encouraging their employees to share cost-saving ideas. Saving money as a process using idea campaigns is something that most organizations care about. We don't tend to think about using it in that way because it's an innovation tool. Well, we can innovate our business, we can innovate our cost models, we can innovate our processes and make ourselves much more efficient. We can also look to reduce risk, identifying and mitigating risk before they materialize. We can look to find the best expertise within the organization to enable us to solve tough technical problems, or perhaps write better solutions to those proposals and bids that we need to write. We can solve tricky problems, we can try and drive more value from third parties, we can get the supply chain involved under a common aim. A whole range of different topics where our innovation tools have just as much relevance as they do the traditional definitions of innovation. So what we hopefully see is this sort of picture building where over time, yes, we may well focus on those blue areas of strategic, radical, incremental innovation, but equally we'll focus on some of these other areas. And of course there'll be some cross-fertilization. Now, some of these areas won't need those back-end capabilities of concepts and projects, but they still will interact with other areas of our organization. So maybe we have a late-stage innovation activity, and we want to make sure we're doing it for the most cost-effective price. Likewise, while we do our process improvements, we may find we can innovate a process, perhaps outsource an element of our business, and innovate our business models in such a way that will help deliver business value in a very different way than we perhaps imagined. If we focus on those outcomes of business value, profitability, we typically have a much richer innovation program. So the final foundation is using our data. We have systematized programs, of course, in all of our customers. And the great thing about systems, as I mentioned before, is they create data over time. And it enables us to monitor the program's performance. And that doesn't just come from the portfolio, but it also comes in terms of individuals' behavior. We need to bear in mind that the organization will change over time. On day one, when we start this program, most people will be thinking, this is interesting, but does it really have value? Is the organization really committed to this? Is this a good use of my time? And they'll be on the sidelines. They'll be watching and waiting. Once we've got them involved, once we've got them enthusiastic, the culture has moved. People's preparedness to get involved in innovation has progressed. And so that gives us an opportunity to stretch that organization, to try and push into a new direction. But certainly if we look for complex organizations, not every division will move at the same pace. We may find that divisions A and B are completely on board and very supportive of enterprise innovation, participating regularly. However, we may find that division C seemingly has very little participation and isn't on board at all, and we'll be scratching our heads as to why we see such differences. We need to explore these things, but using the data to give us an idea of where the challenges are, where the problems are, will help ensure we react well. So if indeed division C isn't participating, we can go and talk to our advocates in that part of the company and find out what the problem is, why people may not be joining in, what is it that makes that division unique, which will help us to fix that problem and get more out of our organization. So we need to keep up with the organization as it progresses in terms of its culture, in terms of what it wants to talk about with regard to innovation, but equally we need to be cognizant and recognize the fact that different parts of our organization move at different pace. And of course, different cultures will behave differently as well. So the further east we go, we might find that people are more reserved. The more west we go, people typically a little bit more open. But there's some nuances to that. We may find that our employees in different countries participate very differently. Using the data will help us understand that and to adapt our tactics accordingly. So that considers the behaviors of the organization. So let's think about also what the portfolio might look like as well. So we need to think about the intensity and focus of the program. How often are we getting people involved? Are the topics engaging, or all of the topics engaging, or are just some topics engaging? We need to think about the momentum that we have in our program. How often were people last involved? And that will then help us create that picture in terms of what kind of shape do we have and how is that organizational shape changing. So let's look at capturing all of the data though. Remember that end-to-end workflow we have, all the way from strategic areas of innovation through to innovation projects. Let's look at how our portfolio value is increasing over time. Do we have more high-quality ideas than we did before? If that number's going up, of course, that's helpful to us. But if at any point it drops, even if our business value and our innovation is going up, if our engagement starts to drop, then that can ripple through. So we need to look at the entire portfolio and the metrics that are important to us. So according to these different phases, we think about the strategic areas of innovation. Do we want to focus on one thing or many things? We're going to run a few focused idea campaigns or many? Have we got more high-quality ideas or less? What's the value of our concept portfolio, our business cases? And what's that going to deliver to us as a business? Have we got more projects, or are they just better differentiated? Are they just worth more? So if we think about what we want to measure consistently in each of these different areas and then monitor that over time, we'll be able to see, is our portfolio generally improving or not? Do we have a higher quality, a richer portfolio? Now, of course, we're always going to be resource constrained. We won't be able to do everything. But if we measure well in terms of our behaviors and also our portfolio, it'll help us make better decisions in terms of our resources and where we want to put our investment. Often we develop really great projects, but we only have the capacity to put it in a small number into implementation. We want to make sure that we choose the right ones. And once we finish with putting those into implementation, we want to make sure we go back to go and get those ones that we previously had dismissed just simply because we didn't have enough resources. Maintaining all of this portfolio is obviously crucial to that entire process. So just to summarize, we need to adapt the messages and tactics according to the maturity of your organization. The communications, they have 4 levels. Marketing level, in terms of making sure people are aware of the program. Feedback, just the individual to make sure they know that their idea has been assessed and it's a welcome part of the process. Campaign level or activity level to make sure those people that didn't join in still know this is a good process. And then we have the quarterly feedback at the program level to make sure that everybody can look retrospectively at what we've progressed, what we're continuing to work on, and where we're going to go. Moving on to growing our innovation community, those innovation advocates exist. We just need to look for them, we need to identify them, we need to train them. If you're struggling with the amount of resources in your innovation program, then an innovation advocate program is a very useful way to go. You've got to find a way of finding them, of course, and we see from their behaviors in our world they begin to self-materialize, but develop that community, train them, explain to them why they've been approached, and use them to be your eyes and ears in the organization. Give your innovation program a breadth of focus. That means you have a tactical activity, an incremental set of activities, churning away, developing small incremental or small modest improvements for the organization. Measure those, record those, demonstrate what you're doing on a regular basis to the organization. In the more radical spaces, it may take many years for you to be able to show value. So having that utility running alongside of innovating your processes, innovating your cost models, making sure everything is as optimal as it can be, helps demonstrate your value at any point in given time. But bear in mind, the innovation processes that we use, they're just as applicable to a whole range of different areas of our organization. So focus on where the pain points are, get confidence and belief in the process, and then have a balanced portfolio of innovation activities for people to engage with. And then finally, make sure you have an eye on continually improving your program. Watch the organizational culture, look where it's developed to, make sure the innovation activities you're investing in are appropriate to that culture and where you're at, and monitor your portfolio. Draw some lines in the sand to start off with. Give yourself some data points and measure against those as you progress. Look at how the portfolio value is changing, the amount of projects and investments that you have, and check that the general direction of the program is one of health. If you're monitoring it, if you're watching it, you can make sure that you mitigate any unforeseen issues as they emerge, whereas if you don't measure it, often these things can catch us out.